We want to bring in former Republican presidential candidate and Fox News contributor Herman Cain. Wow, Herman, good to see you. I don't know if I like this. He said something that we know how he feels about something about President Trump, and now he's being bullied by the athletes that he pays millions of dollars. Apparently, Steph Curry had a problem with what he said. You know that Under Armour pays Steph Curry $4 million a year.
If I were that CEO, I would have these high visibility athletes. I would call them to headquarters and sit down and have a talk and give them a little education on the benefits of a businessman in the White House. They are great athletes, but they probably don't understand the dynamics of a great economy, and they don't understand the advantages of tone from the top. He was reacting based upon being a businessman himself when he said Donald Trump is an asset, his ideas and his approach. So it appears to me that he's working on the wrong problem by walking it back. He probably should be conducting some, quote, educational sessions with these athletes and to also show them how to connect the dots between what Trump is doing, the success of the company, and their ability to compensate them. That's the part that they're missing.
But, Herman, it's Dagan McDowell. Why, if you were running this company, would you just tell, I mean, it's a tough kind of financial equation, but just tell the athletes if they don't like it, so what?
I would first try to educate them. Then if they don't like it, it would be the so what. But I just think that it's probably more miseducation, misinformation than anything else. Now, it's not just limited to these athletes reacting this way. A lot of people are acting uninformed about the advantages of the things that the Trump administration that they're doing or that they are putting on the table and setting up initiatives, doing all of the things that's going to stimulate this economy.
Herman,
so I would give them an opportunity to learn first.
Buck Sexton here wanted to ask you whether you think that the possibility of a boycott may have factored into the CEO's thinking. We've already seen a number of movements tied to or anti-Trump movements that have been out there pushing for boycotts. And so while I understand that for a lot of us seeing a CEO bend the knee here and immediately change his tune after he said something that seems innocuous, if nothing else, I also feel like there must be some consideration here that he has for his employees and the health of his company. And while it's unfair, I can understand why he wouldn't want the whole company to have problems because of what he said. Do you think a boycott fear may have played in here?
I don't know, but if it were me, it would not have played into it, and here's why. The majority of the American people have demonstrated that they are not going to play this this anti-Trump game. Take a look at what happened with respect to Macy's. Macy's said we're going to take the Trump merchandise out. Well, what did that do for Macy's? Their stock value was nearly 50% less almost a year later than it was when they made that announcement. There's a difference between the American people who are spending their money to support these products and the lens of the media that's trying to create the perception. He made a knee-jerk reaction, I agree, but it's a knee-jerk reaction that many people who will have given it a little bit of a thought may have thought about it. So I really don't know whether or not the threat of a boycott entered into his thinking, but if it were me, that would not have been my major consideration.
Herman, I'd love to get your reaction to another story in the same vein, which is the CEO of IBM. And she said, Ms. Rometty said, you know, I've been asked to serve as an advisor to the president, and someone in the leadership role at IBM has served every president for the last 40 years, so I'm staying. That was her reaction to pressure saying she should step down. What's your reaction to her approach?
Here again, anything Trump causing people to not do what they think would be in the best interest of the country and the best interest of their organization, I think that is misguided. Obviously, CEOs are in a very delicate position, especially if you're a publicly held company. They're in the position of wanting to do what's right, but may fear some backlash from stockholders, board members, as well as employees. You can't lead in fear. And this is what I happen to believe that she and others are going to have to decide. Are you going to lead in fear and reprisal because you want to work with this president, or are you going to cower to the outside pressures that are the result of the anything Trump hysteria and speculation on steroids.
Can we just
That's
make
what's
the
going on.
distinction between an individual, be it a CEO or someone else, endorsing a candidate? He's not a candidate anymore.
Yeah.
He won.
Right.
He's running the country, making policy. So if you don't have a seat at the table and you don't have his ear at least part of the time during the year, then you're doing your shareholders, you're doing your customers a disservice.
Yeah, isn't it better to be in his face to bring up the criticism that some people have, rather than not having the access? I mean, Ginny Rometty was right what she did.
Absolutely. It's not a matter of this president, it's the president.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're going to advise the president, you're on the right side of the law.
But they don't understand this, Herman.
Right. They don't understand it. So this is what I would do. I would have a meeting with my employees to help set the table and land the plane. This is what's happening in many of these companies. When there was a president in the White House that the liberal media was going gaga over, CEOs didn't have to educate their employees. If they get their employees to understand what's going on and how it impacts them because of the way it impacts the company, then if they get some outside pressure, they'll have some leverage in terms of being able to explain why they're doing what's right. And let's go back to what Maria and Dagan said. You're right. It is stupid not to be at the table after you've been invited to be at the table. Right. And as one of the others said, this isn't just any president. He's the president right now. Learn to work with him and his administration.
Yeah. So I mean, the bullying's going to continue. You know that, Herman.
Yes.
What now then? What people should just stand firm is what you're saying.
I'm saying people should stand firm, number one. And number two, CEOs are going to have to add something else to their plate. And that is, you need to conduct some sessions with your employees throughout your company to basically try to get them to understand what's going on. If your employees are getting their perceptions of this administration and the perception of what's going on only through the lens of the mainstream liberal media, that's why you're getting this. Unfortunately, 50% of the people that get any news at all, this is how they're getting their news. And the best way to basically counteract that would be to have discussion sessions with them so you can connect the dots, land the plane, and say this is how what he's doing is positively impacting this company, which would positively impact you. Those are the steps I believe that CEOs ought to be taking.
Well, thank you for bringing the sanity back in the room, Herman. Thank you so much for joining us today. Herman Cain there.